attention to this footage. What you're looking at right now was recorded by Lily Bennett's mother on her phone during what she thought was just a routine medical appointment. Look closely at those eyes, that striking, almost electric blue color. The mother had no idea she was documenting something that would become crucial evidence in one of the most disturbing cases of medical exploitation ever prosecuted. That innocent recording session, meant to capture her daughter's rare condition, would eventually help expose a conspiracy that had been operating in plain sight for over 3 years. What happened next would shatter a family's trust and reveal a predator hiding behind a white coat. You know that moment when you finally get answers after years of searching? For the Bennett family, that moment came wrapped in both relief and terror. Sarah and Marcus Bennett had spent the better part of their daughter's childhood trying to understand why Lily looked different from other kids. Those piercing blue eyes, so vivid they almost seemed to glow, had been there since birth. In their small community in Austin, Texas, people stared. Teachers asked questions. Other children pointed. The Bennetts weren't shallow people. They loved their daughter unconditionally. But they wanted answers. Was she healthy? Would this affect her vision? What caused this? So they did what any concerned parents would do. They sought out specialists. Lily was 8 years old when they finally found Dr. Catherine Reeves. The ophthalmologist came highly recommended, with a practice at the Austin Vision Institute that catered to complex cases. Dr. Reeves had published papers on genetic eye disorders. She'd spoken at conferences. She seemed like exactly the expert the Bennetts had been searching for. Their first appointment was in March of 2015, and Dr. Reeves seemed genuinely fascinated by Lily's case. She diagnosed the girl with a rare form of Waardenburg syndrome, a genetic condition that affects pigmentation. It explained everything: the blue eyes, the slight differences in Lily's facial features. Finally, the Bennetts had their answer. What they didn't know was that Dr. Reeves saw something else in Lily. Not a patient, not a child, but an opportunity. The appointment started normally enough. Dr. Reeves scheduled follow-ups every 6 weeks, which seemed reasonable for monitoring a rare condition. She took photographs for Lily's medical file. She ran tests. She asked detailed questions about Lily's development, her school, her daily routine. Sarah Bennett actually liked Dr. Reeves at first. The doctor was warm with Lily, always bringing small toys or stickers to appointments. She'd compliment Lily's eyes, telling her they were special, unique, beautiful. For a little girl who'd been stared at her whole life, hearing that her difference was beautiful meant everything. But around the 6th month of treatment, things started feeling off. Dr. Reeves began requesting longer appointment slots. What used to be 30-minute checkups stretched to an hour, sometimes 90 minutes. The doctor would spend ages photographing Lily's eyes from different angles, with different lighting setups. She brought in professional camera equipment, which she claimed was for medical documentation. "I want to make sure we have the best quality images for your file," she'd explain. This could help other children with similar conditions. Sarah Bennett, ever trusting, even felt proud. Her daughter's case might help advance medical science. What parent wouldn't want that? By December of 2015, the appointments had taken on an almost ritualistic quality. Dr. Reeves had a specific routine. She'd dim the lights in her examination room, position Lily in front of a burgundy backdrop she'd installed, and spend up to 45 minutes just photographing the child's face. Close-ups of the eyes, different expressions, profile shots. For the medical journal, she'd always say. Marcus Bennett was the first to voice concern. After dropping Lily off for an appointment one afternoon, he'd forgotten his phone and returned to the office. When he walked into the examination room, Dr. Reeves was showing Lily something on her computer. Photographs of other children, all with unusual eye colors or facial features. "Just showing her that she's not alone," Dr. Reeves explained smoothly. "There are other special kids out there." But something about the interaction made Marcus uneasy. The way the doctor quickly closed the laptop, the slight flush in her cheeks, the defensiveness in her tone. He mentioned it to Sarah that night, but she dismissed his concerns. "She's helping Lily feel normal. That's a good thing." Then came the February incident that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Sarah had taken Lily to her regular appointment, but this time, Dr. Reeves asked something unusual. Could she take Lily to a different office in the building? Just for some specialized imaging equipment, she explained. It would only take 20 minutes. Sarah, always trusting, agreed. She waited in the reception area, flipping through magazines. But 20 minutes became 40, then an hour. When Sarah finally went looking for them, she found Dr. Reeves's regular examination room empty. A nurse directed her to a suite on the 3rd floor, an office that wasn't even part of the Austin Vision Institute. It was a private photography studio. When Sarah pushed open the door, she froze. Lily was positioned on a stool, wearing a black turtleneck that Sarah had never seen before. Dr. Reeves was behind a professional camera on a tripod, directing Lily like she was conducting a photo shoot. Turn your head slightly left, sweetheart. Beautiful. Now look directly at me. Perfect. What is this? Sarah's voice cut through the room like ice. Dr. Reeves spun around, her professional demeanor cracking for just a moment. Mrs. Bennett, this is for the case study. The journal requires high-quality images. In a photography studio? In clothes I didn't bring? I can explain. But Sarah had already grabbed Lily's hand. We're leaving, now. She filed a complaint with the hospital's ethics board the very next day. The complaint detailed the inappropriate photography sessions, the excessive appointments, the unauthorized use of a private studio, and what Sarah described as Dr. Reeves's obsessive fixation on her daughter. The ethics board scheduled an investigation meeting for March 22nd. Dr. Reeves was placed on administrative leave pending review. She never showed up for that meeting. On March 19th, Dr. Catherine Reeves vanished without a trace. When someone disappears, there's always that initial period of uncertainty. Maybe they're on a spontaneous trip. Maybe they needed space. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation. But Dr. Reeves's disappearance didn't feel like any of those things. Her car was still in her driveway. Her purse was on her kitchen counter. Her phone was turned off. She'd called in sick to work on March 18th, and then nothing. It was like she'd evaporated into thin air. The Austin Police Department opened a missing persons investigation, and that's when Detective James Wu entered the picture. Wu was a 15-year veteran of the force, specializing in cases involving vulnerable victims. When he read Sarah Bennett's ethics complaint and saw the timeline of Dr. Reeves's disappearance, alarm bells went off immediately. A doctor accused of inappropriate behavior with a child patient goes missing 3 days before an ethics hearing, Wu told his partner. That's not coincidence, that's flight. He obtained a warrant to search Dr. Reeves's office at the Austin Vision Institute. What he found in her private examination room made his blood run cold. Behind a filing cabinet, wedged into the space between the cabinet and the wall, Wu discovered a laptop. It had been deliberately hidden, pushed into a spot where casual cleaners would never look. The laptop was password protected, but the department's digital forensics team had it unlocked within hours. What they found on that hard drive would transform a missing persons case into a criminal investigation of staggering scope. There were folders, hundreds of them, each labeled with a child's name and case number. Inside each folder were photographs, not the clinical medical documentation you'd expect from a doctor's files, but portrait-style images. Professional quality. Carefully lit. Posed. Lily Bennett's folder alone contained over 3,000 photographs spanning 9 months. But she wasn't the only one. Wu counted 27 different children, all patients of Dr. Reeves, all with unusual eye colors or rare genetic conditions affecting their appearance. And then there were the communications. Dr. Reeves had been using encrypted messaging apps to communicate with individuals on international servers. The conversations made Wu's stomach turn. These weren't medical colleagues. They were collectors, people who paid significant amounts of money for high-quality photographs of children with rare genetic conditions. The messages revealed a marketplace that Wu had never encountered before. There were buyers in 6 different countries, each with specific interests. Some wanted children with heterochromia, 2 different colored eyes. Others sought kids with albinism. Still others focused on rare pigmentation disorders. Dr. Reeves had been selling access to these images for anywhere from $500 to $3,000 per set, but it got worse, much worse. Text messages showed that Dr. Reeves had been arranging what she called private consultations, sessions where these collectors could video chat with her during examination appointments. For the right price, they could watch her photograph these children in real time, requesting specific poses or angles. The children never knew they were being watched, neither did their parents. Wu felt physically sick reading through the evidence. This woman had weaponized her medical degree, her position of trust, and the vulnerability of these families. She'd taken parents' desperate need for answers about their children's conditions and twisted it into an enterprise built on exploitation. The forensic accounting team traced Dr. Reeves's financial records. Between 2013 and 2016, she'd deposited over $420,000 into various offshore accounts. The money came from wire transfers with vague descriptions, consulting fees, image licensing, research contributions. But where had Dr. Reeves gone? The investigation intensified. Wu worked with the FBI, given the international nature of the crimes. They tracked her credit cards, her phone records, any digital footprint they could find. Nothing. It was like she'd prepared for this moment, had an exit strategy ready to execute. Then they caught a break. One of Dr. Reeves's contacts in her encrypted messages was less careful than the others. The FBI's cybercrimes unit traced his IP address to an apartment in Vancouver, Canada. When Canadian authorities raided the location, they found a treasure trove of evidence, and something else. Recent communications with Dr. Reeves. She was alive, she was in hiding, and she was still trying to access her network. The Canadian contact, a 38-year-old man named Derek Paulson, initially refused to cooperate. But when faced with his own charges related to child exploitation material, he made a deal. He'd help them find Dr. Reeves in exchange for a reduced sentence. Paulson revealed that Dr. Reeves had a contingency plan, a cabin in British Columbia near the town of Pemberton, owned through a shell corporation. She'd told him she'd be laying low there until things cooled down. On April 27th, nearly 6 weeks after her disappearance, a joint task force of U.S. and Canadian law enforcement descended on a remote cabin in the woods outside Pemberton. What they found inside would haunt Detective Wu for years to come. The cabin was small, maybe 800 square feet, nestled deep in the forest where the nearest neighbor was 3 miles away, perfect for someone who wanted to disappear. When the tactical team breached the door, Dr. Catherine Reeves was sitting at a kitchen table calmly eating breakfast. She didn't run, didn't resist. She just looked up at the officers with an expression that Wu later described as disturbingly serene. "I've been expecting you," she said. But it was what the officers found in the cabin's main room that sent chills through everyone present. An entire wall, floor to ceiling, had been converted into a gallery. Photographs covered every inch. And at the center, like a shrine, were dozens of images of Lily Bennett. Those striking blue eyes stared out from multiple angles, different poses, different lighting setups. The largest print, a 20 by 30-inch portrait, hung in the middle of everything else. Dr. Reeves had built a monument to her obsession. Detective Wu, who'd flown to Canada to assist with the arrest, walked through the cabin documenting everything. In a closet, he found hard drives, backups of everything from the laptop they'd already seized, plus additional content. Thousands more images, correspondence with collectors spanning back to 2011, 2 years before she'd even met Lily. This hadn't been a recent descent into criminality. This had been a carefully constructed operation running for at least 5 years. On her laptop, she'd brought a new one to the cabin, investigators found active conversations. Dr. Reeves had been trying to maintain her network even in hiding. She'd been offering her archive to collectors, trying to liquidate her assets before she disappeared permanently. Some of the messages were from as recently as the day before her arrest. The evidence was overwhelming, but Wu wanted to understand something that had been bothering him since the beginning. How had she gotten away with this for so long? During the initial interrogation, with her lawyer present, Dr. Reeves remained mostly silent. But there was one question that seemed to crack her facade. Wu asked about the video that Sarah Bennett had recorded on her phone during that routine appointment, the footage they'd discovered when going through the family's documentation of their concerns. "You knew parents were recording," Wu said. "How did you think you'd never get caught?" For the first time, Dr. Reeves showed emotion. Her hands trembled slightly. "I was careful. I only worked with families who were desperate, who trusted medical authority completely. They wanted answers so badly, they didn't question anything. And the ones who did start to question," she trailed off. "The ones who did question, you'd back off," Wu finished for her. "Lily's case was different. You got sloppy, you got too attached." Dr. Reeves didn't respond, but Wu saw the truth in her eyes. Lily had been special to her in some sick way. That's why there were 3,000 photos. That's why the shrine. That's why she'd pushed too far with the studio session and finally triggered Sarah Bennett's suspicions. The investigation expanded beyond Dr. Reeves herself. Authorities tracked down her network of collectors and buyers. Raids were conducted in 8 countries. 17 people were arrested on various charges related to the exploitation and distribution of the photographs. Several of them were, disturbingly, medical professionals themselves, doctors, nurses, therapists, who'd used their access to vulnerable families for the same purposes. The hard drives revealed something else that connected back to the original case in a chilling way. Remember that footage Sarah Bennett recorded on her phone? The simple video of Lily during an appointment? Investigators found that Dr. Reeves had been screen recording those sessions when parents used their phones to document their child's condition. She'd been capturing their personal videos and adding them to her collection, claiming the raw, unposed quality made them more valuable to certain buyers. That phone footage Sarah had thought was just a mother's documentation of her daughter's medical care had been stolen, copied, and commodified. It was now evidence of theft alongside everything else. For Sarah and Marcus Bennett, learning the full scope of what had happened to their daughter was devastating. The trust they'd placed in a medical professional had been completely violated. The photographs they'd consented to for medical purposes had been distributed to strangers around the world. The appointments they'd thought were helping Lily were actually exploitation sessions. Lily herself, now 9 years old, didn't fully understand what had happened. Her parents made the decision not to tell her the details until she was older. For now, they just told her that Dr. Reeves had done some bad things and wouldn't be their doctor anymore. But the other families, the 26 other families whose children appeared in Dr. Reeves's collection, they had to be told. Detective Wu spent weeks making phone calls, conducting gentle interviews, explaining to shocked and horrified parents that the doctor they'd trusted had been selling images of their children to strangers. Some parents had never suspected anything. Others, like the Bennetts, had felt something was off, but couldn't put their finger on what. A few had filed their own complaints with the hospital years earlier, complaints that had been dismissed or resulted in Dr. Reeves receiving nothing more than a verbal warning. The hospital itself launched an internal investigation. How had this gone undetected? The ethics board had received at least 4 separate complaints about Dr. Reeves between 2013 and 2016. Each time, she'd provided explanations that satisfied the reviewers. The photography equipment required for specialized documentation. The long appointments, complex cases needed more time. The private studio session, a one-time arrangement for specific imaging requirements. She'd been a master manipulator, always staying just within the bounds of plausible deniability until the day Sarah Bennett walked into that studio and saw through the facade. Dr. Catherine Reeves was extradited to the United States in July of 2016. Her trial began in January of 2017, and the prosecution's case was ironclad. The laptop, the hard drives, the financial records, the messages, the shrine in the cabin, everything pointed to years of calculated exploitation. Her defense team tried to argue that she'd been conducting legitimate research, that the photographs were for medical purposes, that the collectors were academic colleagues. But the evidence destroyed those claims. The encrypted messages, the pricing discussions, the requests for specific poses, none of that aligned with medical research. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The charges included 27 counts of child exploitation, wire fraud, medical fraud, theft of medical records, violation of patient privacy, and computer crimes. The prosecution detailed how she'd earned over $420,000 from her illegal activities over 5 years. On March 3, 2017, Catherine Reeves was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for the first 25 years. She was also required to forfeit all assets purchased with money from her criminal enterprise and was permanently barred from practicing medicine. The impact on the families involved has been lasting. The Bennett family moved to a different city, wanting a fresh start away from the trauma. Sarah Bennett became an advocate for stronger ethics oversight in medical practices, particularly those involving children with rare conditions. She's worked with patient advocacy groups to push for legislation requiring parental presence during all photography sessions and limiting doctors' ability to share patient images without explicit, detailed consent. The Austin Vision Institute implemented sweeping policy changes. All examination rooms now have windows or require a second medical professional present during appointments. Patient photography requires written consent detailing exactly how images will be used and stored. And any ethics complaints involving potential exploitation trigger immediate external review. For Lily Bennett, now 13 years old as of this recording, her parents have created a trust fund from the restitution payments in Dr. Reeves's case. The money will help pay for therapy and will be available to Lily when she's older. Her parents plan to tell her the full story when she turns 18, believing she deserves to know the truth but wanting to protect her childhood as much as possible. Those cerulean eyes that made Dr. Reeves see an opportunity instead of a patient. They're still striking, still beautiful, still unique. But now, Lily's parents see them differently too. Not as a medical curiosity, but as a reminder that their fierce love and eventual suspicion saved their daughter from even worse exploitation. Dr. Catherine Reeves remains in federal prison, where she'll likely spend the rest of her life. She's reportedly written a memoir about her case, though no publisher has been willing to touch it. The other 17 people arrested in connection with her network have received sentences ranging from 5 to 18 years. Lily Bennett's case became a watershed moment in medical ethics, proving that predators can hide behind white coats just as easily as they can hide anywhere else. Her mother's simple phone recording, that footage of a little girl with remarkable blue eyes, became the first domino in exposing a conspiracy that had operated in plain sight for years. Sometimes the most haunting cases aren't about violence or obvious crimes. Sometimes they're about trust betrayed, about authority abused, about the people we believe will protect our children becoming the very ones we need to protect them from. Lily is thriving now by all accounts. She's just a teenager trying to live her life, remarkable eyes and all. And that, perhaps, is the best ending her story could have, not defined by what was done to her, but by how her family's love and vigilance helped save her from becoming another silent victim.